Kina Securities launch new brand. PNG, an emerging frontier market. And lessons learned from the late protests.
This is National EMTV News with Tokana Hasavi.
A very good evening and welcome. This is Thursday's news. Kina Securities Limited launched its new brand today here in Port Moresby. This completes an eventful and successful year in which the company marked its transformation as PNG's fourth largest bank following the recent acquisition of Maybank PNG.
With the addition of banking to its existing lending and wealth management services, Kina has emerged as a homegrown success story. Being the first Papua New Guinean financial services company to list dually on the stock exchange in both PNG and Australia, and now a banking organization giving customers the opportunity to access a broad range of financial services through one provider.
Kina's been in Papua New Guinea for 30 years now, and we've been helping Papua New Guineans achieve their financial success over all those times. Following the acquisition of Maybank on the 30th September, we thought it was best that we come up with a new brand that reflects the culture of the two organisations, but more importantly to reflect about, to modernise what we were doing, because we'd had our brand for a long time, our different brand. So we wanted to reflect what Papua New Guinea is all about. And it was important to make sure, because we were going out internationally, we had some international shareholders listing on the ASX. We wanted the opportunity to proudly reflect our homegrown heritage, and after all, we are Papua New Guinea's first homegrown bank here. So that was one of the main reasons why we went out to do it.
The new Kina will operate through two main divisions, Kina Bank and Kina Wealth, offering products including savings accounts, mortgages, business loans and so forth. According to Chairman Rabi Namalu, Papua New Guineans are a very colourful people, and the new colours and logo draws from that and are intentionally warm and energetic, inspired by the country's vibrant and extraordinary people and flora and fauna, reflecting a bright future for Kina and for Papua New Guinea. The brand slogan, "Together It's Possible," makes a pledge to the Kina customers, reinforcing the strong relationship that forms the cornerstone of the Kina brand. I'm Leah Durari reporting for National EMTV News.
Experts in the economy say Papua New Guinea is well placed as a frontier emerging market. Richard Borishevich, General Manager of BSP Capital, said PNG has come full circle with more sustainable growth numbers. According to Roy Trivedi, UN Resident Coordinator in PNG, translating that healthy growth into the well-being of the people remains a challenge.
Marco Venditti, Editorial Director of Oxford Business Group, said over the last 3 years he has seen a growing middle class in Port Moresby and other major centres. He said PNG's middle class is going to be the country's engine for growth in the long run.
The future of Papua New Guinea belongs to the middle class.
John Lay, president of the PNG Chamber of Commerce and Industry, said that from a recent visit to China, PNG is hoping to get support for the agro industry and possibly aquaculture as well. Mr. Lay said China's middle class is also growing and they want places to go to for tourism.
We talk about Papua New Guinea's middle class growing. Well, let me tell you, so is China's middle class growing, and they're wanting places to go for tourism. It is a completely different world here compared to what they live in. So if they can come and see pristine forests and pristine cultures and pristine waters and things of all that, all those sort of things are very, very valuable. So I think we need to redouble our efforts to promote Papua New Guinea's tourism sector.
Richard Borishevich, General Manager of BSP Capital, said PNG has returned to normal numbers.
We have actually gone full circle and we've actually reached a norm where you've got more rational, more reasonable, more sustainable growth numbers which are healthy. So, they won't create runaway inflation for argument's sake. They won't create distortions in capital markets. They won't create distortions between supply and demand that runaway and rampant growth can have.
He said right now there is a surplus of gas in the world, and by 2020 there will be a shortage of gas in the world with no new projects coming on stream. This, he said, places PNG as a frontier emerging market with great opportunity to participate as a major new energy exporter close to the markets that need the energy.
So it is a rational company, it is a rational investor, it is a rational participant that looks at PNG and says, I need to be there, acknowledging that it's a frontier emerging market.
UN resident coordinator in PNG, Roy Trivedi, said all this need to be translated to improving the livelihood of the people.
Compared to everywhere else in the world, the growth story in Papua New Guinea is still incredible. The challenge for us as a country is how do we translate that growth into the well-being of our people.
Deli Waigeno, National EMTV News.
And in Lae, the clash between the Boundary Road and Sialum communities 4 weeks ago has forced families to seek temporary refuge in a makeshift care centre. The fighting has prevented school students from attending school. Most of the children at the makeshift care centre have fallen sick. Their mothers are having difficulty taking them to the hospital.
Up until 4 weeks ago, mother of three, Mary Gilla, was living at the Sialum compound. Her house was burned during a clash between her community and the Boundary Road community. She is now living with her children under her house belonging to a relative. Over the 4 weeks since the clashes ended, school children were not able to go to school. Those affected the most have been students in grades 8 and 10. School books and uniforms were burned in the attack. Smaller children have fallen sick. They are having diarrhea, but their mothers cannot take them to the hospital because they don't have the money to pay for medicine. During the night, the children are sleeping in the open space without mosquito nets. Up to 70 houses were burned during the fighting. 17 families, including children under 5, have been displaced. The Lae District Law and Order Committee have given the two communities a preventive order. This now means anyone who causes trouble will be evicted. Mata Lewis, National EMTV News, Lae.
Lae City Metropolitan Commander Anthony Wagambi Jr. says people passing false information around must stop. Misleading information is bad for the people. If caught, those spreading false information will be dealt with accordingly. Lae City has resumed normal activities and police are on alert. Police have organised themselves following the protest on Monday, where they were caught off guard. They are now placed at different locations of the city to make sure normalcy is restored. Business houses in Lae City can now conduct normal business.
Because right now the petition has been served to the governor. So there should not be any other gathering until or when the governor decides to, if he decides to have a gathering again where he will respond to the points of the petition, then we may allow that to happen, but in an orderly manner. What we experienced on Monday, as I said, we were caught off guard.
Now, from the outside looking in, the 2 days of protests in Lae City against street vendors and petty crime looked chaotic and uncontrolled. Houses and vehicles were stoned and one person died as a result of sporadic violence away from where there were police presence. The protests could have turned into widespread violence between the predominantly Morobian protest groups and those blamed for the harassments and street vending. Much of the violence was prevented because of various factors, including swift pace to face interactions between Morobi's political leaders, police and community leaders. In tonight's EMTV News special report, Scott Wider looks at the lessons learned from these protests.
In a city plagued by illegal alcohol production, drugs, crime and a history of Morobian assertiveness coupled with violence, what began on Monday was expected by many commentators to escalate to bloodshed. But it didn't. On Monday, when protesters gathered at Chinatown, Authorities were caught by surprise, even though there was talk on the street that Morabian youths would be demonstrating against street vendors and petty crimes. And there are lessons to be learnt from the week's events. First, the method of containment and control. With limited resources, police had to juggle priorities. The main group assembled at 7th Street, the main entry point into Lay's top town. They were stopped by police, and as youths hurled abuse at police, they remained calm and in control. After at least 2 hours of negotiations, the main crowd was told to go back home. On their way, houses and vehicles were stoned, but the route chosen by police was one that limited the amount of looting that could have taken place and channeled the mass of people from 7th Street to Chinatown, where a police post is located.
Come, line up now.
And there were multiple groups. Another remained at Huonville Primary School. And what stood out was the hands-on approach by the police command and the provincial government leaders. Deputy Governor Judas Nalau, the provincial administrator and other senior officers spoke to the crowd directly without delegating the tasks. On Monday, the response time remained key. After diffusing tensions at Huonville Primary, word came that another group was gathering at Eriku. Again, police, despite being short in numbers, had contained the crowd along the Milford Haven Road.
Okay, now we must look this morning. And more short here, you saw it. Now you saw a passing block, calm block, protest the city. You must get time blame now. And currently finish. And you mean better than you come.
If the letter of the law was followed, the protests would have been deemed illegal. And if authorities did, it would have meant the suppression of any protest and the violence would have been triggered. But the approach they took was flexible. Those who protested were allowed to express themselves to the lay police boss and the government.
All people at Morabe, they are not safe at their own city. Huh? All feel free in the city, Blolet. Why is that? You lead us to at the office, not concentrating what is going in and around the city.
And Morabe's political heads facilitated dialogue that gave an opportunity for people to provide a structured list of demands to their government. Tuesday, under heavy police guard, the demonstration, although technically illegal, was allowed to proceed. For many leaders, it took some guts to control a crowd this size and to direct them in an orderly manner to the stadium. Despite the potential for violence and chaos, the protesters were led to the Sir Ignatius Kilagis Stadium, where they were allowed to express their views and present a petition to the Morabe governor. Over the course of the 2 days, there's been no reported cases of any member of the public being shot by police or physically abused. The provincial government has been given 7 days to respond, and after that will be a new chapter of events. Scott Waide, National MTV News, Lay.
Dramatic scenes from Lay City of the protests that happened earlier this week. While you're watching National MTV News tonight, Investigation Task Force Sweep Chairman Sam Coim speaks on working without funds. That story and more after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National MTV News. A senior tribesman from the Tuguba tribe in Southern Islands has raised concerns about the establishment of the liquefied natural gas project. Tribal Chief Simon Ekanda says the establishment of the ExxonMobil-owned liquefied natural gas project is illegal. He says proper processes were not followed and shifted blame on the then Somali government for bulldozing the setup of the LNG project. MTV's Quinton Allen reports.
A series of concerns were raised against the government and ExxonMobil subsidiary, Esso Highlands Limited, for the establishment of the LNG project. Tuguba Tribal Chief from Southern Highlands, Simon Ekanda, says the project is illegal because proper processes were omitted.
The LNG project is still an illegal project because the Tuguba tribe, which I'm the chairman, has not given its consent and to the project and to ExxonMobil to come exit to our private property in the tribal land of the Tuguba tribe.
His arguments were that the LNG project is illegally established in the area without knowing the real landowners and what benefits they should get. Until today, social mapping, clan vetting and land identification process is still not resolved, but questions were raised as to who gave the green light for the project to commence when the real landowners were not yet identified.
Because LNG agreement should come after the social mapping land notification study is done. Because they didn't do the social mapping land notification studies. There was no landowner.
A large share of the blame has been shifted to the then Somare government for bulldozing the setup of the project. According to documents obtained by EMTV, the then Attorney General, Dr. Alan Marat, was given only 5 hours to read through the 200 pages of the LNG agreement and give the constitutional and legal clearance. The Tuguba tribal chief also questioned who signed the umbrella benefit sharing agreement in Kokopo in 2009 when landowners were not yet identified.
This signing in Kokopo is illegal. It's against the court order.
These questions surrounding the processes and establishment of the LNG project remain unanswered. Some of these questions end up in courts, and the landowners fear they might not benefit from royalties, which they supposed to earn with the first shipment of gas last year. Quinten Alom, National EMTV News.
The operations of the Investigation Task Force SWEEP are under stress due to lack of funding. Chairman of ITFS, Sam Coim, says the future does not look promising for the task force, given the continued funding deadlock from the government. Despite this, ITFS has made significant gains in the last 3 years.
In its progressive report, the Investigation Task Force SWEEP highlighted its accomplishments and challenges. It accomplished a lot during the years 2011 to 2013. These were the promising years, where ITFS initiated 93 cases, which resulted in 12 successful convictions. It was able to do this with the funding it received from the government, a total of 15.5 million kina. That is 5.8 million kina in 2011, 3 million kina in 2012 and 6.5 million kina in 2013. Other accomplishments were the recovery of 242 million kina in tax recovery.
ITFS, there is no allocation for ITFS next year. It doesn't make any difference at all because we had funding allocated last year, and this year there was no money given.
However, it faced difficulties in the years 2014 to 2015. It was deprived of funding support from the government, totaling 12 million kina. That is 7 million kina last year and 5 million kina this year.
The challenge for the Investigation Task Force SWEEP is for the government to release its funding for it to carry out its operations.
ITFS has registered more than 350 cases of fraud and money laundering, among others. However, funding constraints could affect the progress of these cases. Coim says they haven't been paid and much of their current investigations are funded using their own savings.
Why few of us are still clinging on to this is because of the cost. The costs to the state and the people of Papua New Guinea is really big. Imagine all these cases are not successfully prosecuted because we are unable to bring all the witnesses. If all these cases fail. Imagine we are unable to investigate competently and properly all the allegations that are laid for us to investigate. It means corruption will increase, and those who continue to corrupt will continue to carry on with their corrupt activities.
Mickey Cavera, National EMTV News.
The Leadership Tribunal for Vanimore Green MP Belden Nama has been adjourned to later this month. Mr. Nama appeared for his tribunal at the Waigani National Court this morning, but it did not eventuate. A tribunal was appointed last month to look into allegations of misconduct in office by Mr. Nama. Well, more people in the country are to be affected as the El Nino continues into next year. Provincial and Local Level Government Affairs Acting Secretary Dixon Guina says reports indicate figures will climb to 3 million people. Guina says the situation is critical.
The 8th situation report from the PNG National Disaster Office indicates that the El Nino will continue into 2016. This will see an increase in the number of people affected to about 3 million. The current number of people affected across the country remains around 2.4 million.
It may increase now to maybe 3 million mark because of the situation that is now going on.
The report also states that despite the little rain experienced in parts of the country, weather pattern persists deficit in rainfall in 2015. This will see water levels drop around the country. DPLJ Acting Secretary Dixon Guina says the department through the National Disaster Center is looking at both short and long-term solutions to address this situation.
Because we want to see that there's sustainability. Because the prediction of El Nino is that it may come after every 5 years.
This morning, construction giant CocaCola presented 18,000 kina to NDO to assist in relief logistics in the country.
And this is the beginning, it's not the end, it's the beginning. We will try to do what we can.
The National Executive Council is yet to deliberate on the consolidated assessment report submitted by NDO on the overview of the impacts of drought in the country. Jack Lapave Jr. National MTV News.
And now let's take a look at the finance news. The kina closed unchanged at $0.3395 in the interbank market today. And at Bank South Pacific, our kina was trading at $0.3320 $0.4662 Australian dollars, $0.3051 euro, and 40.44 Japanese yen. Taking a look at commodity prices at New York close, copper closed the day lower, while gold, coffee and cocoa closed the day higher. Palm oil, crude oil and copper all closed the day lower. And finally, on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed at 56 points higher, the ASX closed at 16 points lower, and the All Ordinaries closed at 15 points higher. You're watching National MTV News tonight. We'll have stories making headlines overseas when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. 63 out of 127 appointees on the 2015 Independence Honours List received their Logohu Awards today in a small ceremony this afternoon at the Government's House. The event is held annually by recognition of the Queen of England to commemorate outstanding services to the community and country by individuals.
Those awarded the highest honours as the Grand Companions of the Order were not in attendance to receive their awards. These four are His Royal Highness Duke of York Prince Andrew for his strong support of the role of PNG in the Commonwealth of Nations, particularly during the Pacific Games, and the Honourable John Howard for his contribution to the development of the PNG-Australia relationship during his term as Australia's longest-serving Prime Minister. Tuelaipa Dr. Sailele Malielagoi for distinguished leadership of the Pacific region during his term as Samoa Prime Minister, and Sir Henry Torrobert for exceptional leadership of the financial sector as the longest-serving governor of the Bank of PNG. Next in order, 6 people were appointed as companions of the Star of Melanesia. Among them, and the only one in attendance, is Colleen Fay Neville for over 60 years of service to the community. 4 were appointed as officers of the Order of the Logohu, including PNG's super swimmer Ryan Pinney, who was recognized for his achievements and contribution to the country through sports.
I guess it's a feeling of accomplishment for the work that I've done in the pool, and I guess given back to the community. But I guess for me, it's a way of appreciating all the support I've received over the years, and it's all come back into this award, and I hope the younger generation get to look on this and see what can be accomplished, not just through winning medals and things like that, but what can be done outside of the pool, giving back to the community.
20 more individuals were awarded as members of the Order of the Logohu, while more received medals for their distinguished contributions to the medical, military, police, public and community service. Vanessa Knight, National MTV News.
Turning overseas now, Clive Edwards, Tonga's Minister for Justice, last year said the United Nations and United States and New Zealand are dumping serious offenders in Tonga. Edwards told Radio New Zealand the offenders, some of them convicted murderers, are usually dumped in Tonga without any warning. He says he was usually unaware of deportations when they occurred. He said the offenders are accompanied by a police or immigration escort who then take off without notifying the government. Well, SeaWorld theme parks are the ultimate tourist destination, but the chain of marine parks recorded a loss of over $25 million in the last quarter of 2014. Attendance have been hitting an all-time low thanks to the 2013 documentary Blackfish that uncovered the cruelty and disturbing treatment of killer whales, also known as orcas.
SeaWorld is now phasing out its signature show based on killer whales. The huge turnaround for SeaWorld audiences was the 2013 documentary Blackfish, which explored the cruel conditions in which orcas are kept. Responding to the devastating drop in popularity, SeaWorld's CEO on Monday spoke of a new direction for the company.
In 2017, we will launch an all-new orca experience. It's going to be focused more on the natural setting, natural environment, and also the natural behaviors of the whale. And it'll have a strong conservation message. And that means that 2016 will be the last year of our theatrical killer whale experience called One Ocean. So that right now is in San Diego based on the customer feedback we're getting there.
Backlash from the documentary also included new legislation in New York, California, and Washington banning orca captivity. SeaWorld responded to negativity brought on by the documentary with a $15 million campaign promoting its protection and care for orcas and other animals. Meanwhile, SeaWorld San Diego, which currently holds 11 killer whales in captivity, is legally challenging an order from San Diego's Coastal Commission to end orca captive breeding, although other countries still practice orca captivity, including Spain, Russia, and Canada. Alana Lay, EMTV World News.
Around 25 victims are still missing following a landslide in the Brazilian village of Bento Rodrigues. Described as one of the worst mining disasters in Brazil's history, the mudslide was caused by burst dams at an iron ore mine, forcing cities over 300 kilometers away to cut off drinking water on Monday.
One of the victims of the mudslide was 5-year-old Emanuele Fernandez, whose body was pulled from mud and rubble by firefighters late on Monday and identified by her family.
In a way, this brings us some comfort because they found her body. If they had not found her body, it would have been even sadder.
Others rescued included this dog, who was trapped in the waist-deep contaminated mud, as thick as wet concrete. Health officials are monitoring the toxicity of the water since cutting supply on Monday for over 24 hours. The mine, jointly owned by Australian company BHP Billiton and government-owned Vale SA, and run by mine operator Samarco, was criticized by residents and officials for its lack of communication. Public outcry has included calls for tighter regulation over the powerful mining industry.
This is a nightmare. I never thought we had to live through anything like this. Not to mention that we are homeless and that my 5-year-old daughter was a great friend of hers. Now I have to tell her that Emanuele is in heaven, but it's very hard.
Alana Lay, EMTV World News.
And that's a take on our news segment tonight, but True Guy Sports, that's coming up next with all your sporting updates. Stay with us.
True Guy Sports.
Thanks for joining me with True Guy Sports. The CocaCola Ingenuity Cup Northern Challenge has been finalized and is ready to start on the 18th of next month. 8 teams have confirmed their participation in Morobe. In the East and West Pacific games will be played in the new Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare Stadium. EMTV's Bethany Harriman reports.
The CocaCola Ingenuity Cup is a grassroots franchise. That means it aims to scout and develop Papua New Guinean rural-based rugby league players for future use in the Papua New Guinean Kumuls. The countdown and preparations for the CocaCola Ingenuity Cup continues. Morobe will play host to the Northern Challenge. 8 teams will be participating, including development teams for the Lay Snacks Tigers. The teams, country and city, will represent Lay.
The 2 teams that were named play each other. We will use them in the Ingenuity Cup as well.
Soccer strongholds East and West Sepik will have teams. Games will be played at the new state-of-the-art Sir Michael Somare Stadium.
So we will try and put the CocaCola Ingenuity Cup, the biggest off-season competition in Wewak. And I know the turnout there will be good because rugby league been dead for so long in East and West Sepik.
Medang and Vanimo teams have been added into the mix to bring a Momase rugby flavour, quick-paced and entertaining. Over the last 16 years, the Ingenuity Cup has expanded to places previously untouched by the game. Places like Koroba in the Hela province, Kutubu in the Southern Highlands province. Bethany Harriman, National EMTV Sports, Lay.
Well, Sir Hubert Murray Stadium will be entering its second phase of reconstruction. The first phase, completed in July, with the laying of grass and building of the outer stands, which caters for 15,000 people, will now be further upgraded to a sitting capacity of 20,000. The second phase will also see a brand new covered stadium with 20 corporate boxes. MTV's Elijah Lovett has more on this report.
Another seating area will be built for corporate executives, which will assist in finishing off the stadium. This will be the home of football, rugby union and rugby league. Appropriate fencing will be built around the stadium with the availability of car park space and the inclusion of restaurants and cafes.
Area, and we'll have all the amenities of changing rooms, toilets and everything in place.
Curtin Brothers will continue working on the stadium to completion in a private-public partnership with the government.
Curtin Brothers are putting in 60 million kina of their own funding, probably with a little bit more as well as time goes on, and the government component is another 60 million. So a total of 120 million for this fantastic stadium. This field here, I would say without a doubt, is not only the best rugby and soccer and union field in Papua New Guinea, but in the whole of the Pacific. Without a doubt.
Once the stadium is complete, it is said to be the biggest in Papua New Guinea and the region. It is said to be completed next year in September, 2 months before the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup. Elijah Lovett, National EMTV Sports.
With the Moresby South Rugby League Nights competition coming to an end, Sports Minister Justin Chichenko confirmed today the availability of the Sir Hubert Murray Stadium to stage the grand final. In the Under-19 division, Clayfield Hunters will take on the Southern Suns, while Tully Spartans will face the Ice Gabutu Dragons in the A-grade finals. MTV's Rafaela Kaure reports.
4 teams will play in the grand finals this weekend at the Sir Hubert Murray Stadium. In the men's Under-19 division, Clayfield Hunters are up against Southern Suns, while Tully Spartans will lock horns against the Gabutu Dragons. Moresby South member and Sports Minister Justin Chichenko confirmed this yesterday at the Sir Hubert Murray Stadium.
This competition, the Under-19s and the A-grade grand final played here at the beautiful and the best in the world Hubert Murray Stadium. So for all Moresby South residents and those that in the surrounding electorates as well, you're most welcome to come to the grand final for the Moresby South Rugby League. The entry is free of charge.
This will be the first time of a suburban competition to be hosted by one of the newly refurbished venues following the Pacific Games. President of Moresby South Rugby, Brown Murema, was thankful to the Sports Minister for supporting their game.
Those that are making the effort to come this far to play the grand final, that's going to be a first of its kind in the history of Moresby South Rugby League. It used to be a South Settlement of season, but due to another great leadership of Honorable Justin Chichenko, we make it this far to affiliate the competition. Now it's a sanctions competition, we affiliate to PNGRFL. And I would like to wish the clubs that make this far to come to the grand final to play the inaugural season 2015.
The winner of the A-grade finals cup will walk away with 8,000 kina and the runner-up pocketing 5,000 kina, while in the under 19, the cup winner will be rewarded with 4,000 kina and the runner-up 2,500 kina. Rafaela Kaure, National EMTV Sports.
Well, True Guy Sports continues after these short messages. Stay with us.
True Guy Sports.
Welcome back to True Guy Sports. Well, the NRL PNG's League Belong Life program has been making a difference throughout communities in centres around the country through their curriculum-based development programs targeted at youths. One of their programs which have had a grand impact on many is the League Belong Life Inclusive Day program. The program is focused on using rugby league to highlight the importance of inclusiveness in society.
The League Belong Life program is currently in operation in 4 centres in Papua New Guinea: the National Capital District, East New Britain Province, Eastern Highlands Province and the Autonomous Region of Bougainville. While the core of this program is aimed at achieving mass participation to assist with the growth and further development of the code, the NRL PNG has also devoted much of their time and skills to expanding the reach of the program beyond primary schools to other community organisations.
All our 4 regions for the program, we visit a school with children with disabilities, and we make it a point to specifically spend a day in a term there. This 4th term is for NCD, it's been here at Cheshire Homes.
Mom says this program has been well received and they are pleased to see what rugby league can offer to children with special needs.
A program that includes people and children of all abilities, and we want to provide the support to their learning environment here at Cheshire Homes so that the children get some physical stimulation, enjoyment, and that adds to their enjoyment of school and hopefully helps them with their learning in the school at Cheshire Homes.
League Belong Life is creating new opportunities for persons with disabilities with the aim of achieving togetherness and inclusivity in society. Now, the NRL PNG is also using this as a platform to address key social messages regarding respect and education. Lorraine Genia, National EMTV Sports.
The government has announced that they will continue to support sports enhancement programs in the country. Minister for Sports, Justin Chichenko, gave the government stance on the program that is being facilitated by his office.
Successful results shown during the recent Pacific Games showed that the sports enhancement programs are effective, and in order to produce better results, these programs must continue. The High Performance Unit, High Performance Training and the Go for Gold programs under the National Olympic Committee are the pillars that encourage athletes to yield a high standard of results. The performance of Team PNG athletes at the Pacific Games went to show that the investment of 40 million kina given to the PNG Olympic Committee over the last 2 years has produced positive results. The government will continue to support these programs to enhance our athletes' performance and excel when they compete at international sporting events. Minister Chichenko emphasizes that the government aims to elevate the level of sport in the country and to give the athletes the opportunity to further improve their skills through the sports enhancement programs. Dion Kombeng, National EMTV Sports.
And that wraps up our True Guy Sports segment for tonight. Coming up next, the weather details for the next 24 hours. Stay with us.
True Guy Sports. True Guy Sports.
Taking a quick look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours. In southern region, all centres mostly fine except Daru, cloudy periods. In the Momase region, low clouds expected in Wewak, fine and dry in Madang and Ley, including Vanimo. In the New Guinea Islands, mostly fine expected in all centres. And lastly, in the island's regional centres to look forward to low clouds developing. Now, before we go, as always, quickly recapping our main headlines for tonight. Kina Securities launched their new brand. Also, P&G, an emerging frontier market, and lessons learned from the late protests that occurred earlier this week. And that wraps up tonight's bulletin. On behalf of the entire news crew, I'm Tokana Hasavi Jr. Thanks for your company. You take care and stay happy. Good night.